Alrighty. Okay, Bismillah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. وإن التعلم والتعليم والتذكر والتذكير والنفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم والدعاء إلى الهدى والدلالة عن الخير ابتغاء مرضات الله ووجهه وقربه وثوابه. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Here we go. Okay. So we left off on number 140. حيث قال المصنف رحمه الله تعالى ونفعنا الله إياه بعلومه في الدارين آمين. أباح لك أن تنظر ما في قل انظروا ماذا في السماوات فتح لك باب الأفهام ولم يقل انظروا السماوات لأن لا يدلك على وجود الأجرام. So he said, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, Allah be pleased with him, he has permitted you to reflect on what is in created beings, but he has not allowed you to stop at the self-same creatures. Say, behold, thus with his words, behold what is in the heaven, he has opened up the door of instruction for you. But he did not say, behold the heavens, so as not to lead you to the mere existence of bodies. So one of the things that he's kind of getting at here, and we've seen throughout the hikam, is that a recognition of the multiple layers through which one can look at the world. And if we stop at one layer that is usually the most external layer, then we miss what's going on behind it. And what this in the Quran, قُلْ انظُرُوا مَاذَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ, told us, look at what is in the heavens. And he didn't tell us to look at the heavens. So what he's getting at here is that Allah has told us to look at what is in the heavens, so that when we look at the created things and we see them, that we can, through seeing them, see what is necessarily underneath them, in a sense, or below them, or behind them. That these things are a reflection of the creative power and ability of Allah. And so the goal is not to just behold the thing, but the goal is to let the thing be a means by which we behold the attribute of Allah, or the attributes of Allah that are bringing this thing into this reality in front of us. So basically what I said, what I was going to. Okay. And in doing so, he has opened up for us the door. That's an interesting translation. I probably wouldn't translate it that way. فَتَحَ لَكَ بَابَ الْأَفْهَامِ. He has opened up the door of instruction for you. I would say that he has opened up the door of understanding for you. He has opened up the door for you to be able to understand things at a way that goes beyond face value. Okay, and actually one of the Ibn Qayyim, he used to say about the act of reflection, that reflection and gratitude, that a person will look, that there's levels. The first level is the person perceives. Basically, also everyone shares in this. Number 3 is they look at the thing and they recognize its beauty, And that leads them to reflect upon the beauty of the creator of those things. And so now this is a different level. Only the believers can share in this. Believers of different types, let's say. They can share in the act of reflecting upon something beautiful and letting that be a means by which they think about the beauty of the creator. And then the fourth level that comes after that is the level of the one who so often that becomes their standard. So rather than just like a one-off time of reflection or introspection, that becomes what they do. They're doing that all the time. Okay, so this is the different layers that one can achieve. And so this is kind of getting at that, right? Like Allah has told us to look in the heavens, not at the heavens. So we're supposed فتح لك in the commentary it says فتح لك أيها المريد باب الأفهام فتفهم أنها موجودة لغيرها لا لذاتها فتنظر للأكوان لتصل إلى معرفة الرحمن. Says he has opened for you, Allah has opened for you this door of understandings. These things in creation are present not in and of themselves, but as a result of something other than themselves. And so when you look at the created things, you do so in order to arrive at the knowledge of the most merciful, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's 140. 141, he says, الأكوان ثابتة بإثباته وممحوة بأحادية ذاته. The universe is permanent through his making it permanent. And it is annihilated by the unity of his essence. I don't know if I would translate this as permanent. Thabita. Thabit. Thabit means that it is it's kind of like established, it's present, it's held in place. So the point of all this is to say that all of this that is in creation is there and it's firm and it's in place because Allah made it in place. And if we look from the perspective of his attributes that put it into existence and keeps it into existence, huwa al-hayyul qayyum, then it's present. But if we look from the perspective of Allah's ahadiyya, then nothing exists. Everything is annihilated in the face of his ahadiyya, his unity of existence. So he says in the commentary, because it's going to take a little bit of unpacking. I think it'll make sense with a little bit of unpacking. Is that فمن نظر إلى أحدية ذاته لم يجد للأكوان لأن الأحدية عند العارفين هي ذات البحت أي الخالصة عن الظهور في المظاهر وهي الأكوان والواحدية هي ذات الظاهرة في الأكوان فيكون للأكوان حينئذ ثبوت باعتبار ظهور الحق فيها بحر بلا موج والواحدية بحر مع موج فإن الحق سبحانه عندهم كالبحر والأكوان كالأمواج التي يحركها ذلك البحر فهي ليست عينه ولا غيره هذا هو توحيد العارفين. This is a heavy thing that he said. Stable, yeah. My translation says stable. Stable is good. If that is. Stable. So this, I'm going to try to translate this. He says, so the one who looks to the unity of Allah's existence, his ahadiyya, they don't find any stability to anything in creation. Because they see the stability, the thabut, they see the stability if they look at his wahidiyah, not his ahadiyah, but his wahidiyah, it's oneness versus unity. Oneness. So it's hard to use these terms and stuff. Sometimes people translate them as if they're the same. Ahad and wahid. Allah is al-ahad and he is al-wahid. And al-ahad often is translated as one, and wahid is often translated as one. But they're not the same. So ahadiyya is often used in the context of a oneness, for lack of a better way of expressing this that I can think of, a oneness that is almost inward facing. So it's kind of like an absolute oneness that excludes everything else. And wahid is a one that is one and manifests into everything else. So it's almost like a one that's outward facing versus a one that's inward facing. And that's why it's saying that they see the stability of created things by looking at Allah as al-wahid, because that's the one that is outward facing. But they see the annihilation of all of those created things if they look at Allah as al-ahad, which is a one that's inward facing. And they say that because of this, they say that al-ahadiyya bahrun bila mawj. That al-ahadiyya, the state of ahad, is like an ocean without waves. And the state of wahid, this al-wahidiyya, the state of wahid, is like an ocean with waves. An ocean without waves and an ocean with waves. Because al-haq, the ultimately true to them, is like an ocean. And the created things are like the waves that are moved on that ocean. So they're not the ocean, but they're not the ocean. And this is the Tawheed al-Arifin. So we'll just leave it at that. Apparently there's a big bahth in one of the commentators. There's a big research in one of the commentaries on this. By Imam al-Shanqawi, who is also from Shuyukh al-Azhar, and kind of like parsing what is actually, because we talked about before this thing about wahdatul wujud and how sometimes people will translate kind of does an indication of that here. Wahdatul wujud meaning like everything is one, and everything is not one, and yet everything is still by Allah and through Allah. So that's a bigger topic. If you look at creation from the perspective, creation, everything that's in creation exists because Allah allows it to exist. And if we look at Allah's absolute oneness, then everything ceases to exist. It's as if everything ceases to exist. 142. الناس يمدحونك لما يظنونه فيك فكن أنت ذاما لنفسك لما تعلمه منها. People praise you for what they suppose is in you, but you must blame your soul for what you know is in it. This is a good translation, I think. Like that, suppose, what they suppose is in you. People praise you for what they suppose is in you, but you must blame your soul for what you know is in it. And so again, we have this inward facing, outward facing concept. And outward facing, people might suppose certain good things about you, and so they praise you for them. But and then your response to that praise, or my response to that praise, is to bear in constant mind the reality of our inward states and the reality of our shortcomings. And we don't leave the certainty of, which is coming up in two hikmas, we don't leave the certainty of what we know about ourselves in order to believe the things that people suppose about us. So the certainty that we have about ourselves is more clear to us than what other people suppose about us. And this is generally used like in this sense, that people might praise us and we realize out of humility that we we have our shortcomings. But sometimes this can be used on the other side as well. You know, sometimes people will blame us for certain things. Sometimes people will think badly of us for certain things. Sometimes whatever it might be. While we know that those things are not true. And so I don't also allow my perception of myself to become negative as a result of the false negatives that someone else might have, right? So this could also go the other way. Um, Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he used to say the following dua when people would praise him. He would say the following dua. He would say, um, إذا اللهم أنت أعلم بي من نفسي وأنا أعلم بنفسي منهم اللهم اجعلني خيرا مما يظنون واغفر لي ما لا يعلمون ولا تؤاخذني بما يقولون. Really beautiful dua that Sayyidina Abu Bakr used to make. He used to say, "Oh Allah, you know me better than I know me. And I know me better than they know me." Right? So someone's praising him. He says, "Oh Allah, you know me better than I know me. And I know me better than they know me. Oh Allah, make me better than what they suppose of me, and forgive me for what they do not know about me, and do not take me to account for what they say." And this is Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu. You know, according to Ahl Sunnah, his response to someone praising him, Allah, you know me better than myself, and I know myself better than they know me. Oh Allah, make me better than what they think of me, and forgive me for what they do not know, and don't hold me accountable for what they say. It's really remarkable. SubhanAllah, radiallahu ta'ala. يا من الله أن يثنى عليه بوصف لا يشهده من نفسه. When the believer is praised, he is ashamed before God that he should be lauded for an attribute he or she does not see in himself or herself. Ashamed is one possible translation, but shy would be another translation. Uh, they feel shy that Allah is, they feel shy that people are praising Can you post the dua of Abu Bakr on screen or in chat, please? In Arabic or in English? Maybe someone can find it, actually. Someone will probably, if someone finds it and they can put it in the chat box, that would be helpful. Otherwise, I'm going to have to type up the whole thing in Arabic and then write a translation in English. I can do it, but it would be easier if someone found it. Let's see. I'll give you a minute or two while we continue. So what does the person do when they find themselves in this situation? They're shy in front of Allah that they're being praised like this. He says in the commentary, وَيُكْثِرُ الشُّكْرَ لِرَبِّهِ الَّذِي أَظْهَرَ لَهُ مَحَاسِنَ عِنْدَ النَّاسِ لَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ عَلَيْهَا اشْتِهَارٌ. That the person then, in this case, they're grateful to Allah. They're constantly grateful to Allah that Allah has made apparent on them good qualities that were seemingly not apparent. And that gratitude that they have to Allah then becomes a means by themselves from becoming complacent or dependent upon the praise of the servants of the creation. So they can become complacent. They can become complacent with the praise. right? But as long as they have this shyness and as long as they have gratitude, then that praise will not cause them to become complacent. So that's the protection of this. So sometimes people might experience this, right? Sometimes people praise you for something, or they might praise us for something, and we look at it and we're like, "Oh, I don't know about that one. I don't know if that," you know. And the cure for that, my whole life, actually, I'm worse than the dirt that's under your feet. Actually, I'm worse than the dirt that's under your feet when you go into a bathroom that's at the beach, when the beaches are open and the bathroom beaches are filthy. I'm worse than that dirt. You don't have to go into all that stuff. We just say Alhamdulillah and praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that people saw some sort of good in us that might not even be there, right? And so we just praise Allah for that. And as long as we praise Allah for that, then that gratitude that we have will protect us from the possible consequences of being praised in such a way. 144, thank you for posting that, Islam. 144, Ajhalun Nas. This is the one that I referred to 2 hikmas ago. Ajhalun is the one who abandons the certitude he has for an opinion people have. So the principle in the Sharia is al-yaqinu la yazulu bil-shak. Al-yaqinu la yazulu bil-shak. The certainty is not removed by doubt. Certainty is not removed by doubt. And so whatever it might be, I'm not going to leave what I know for what I don't know, or what I know for what I might know, or what seems likely. And this is a principle that is extremely important to as an arbiter upon all of our thought and all of our personal, or that which is doubtful. So I know that I'm responsible in front of Allah. I'm thinking maybe in this particular case it's not that big a deal, but I know that I'm responsible. The examples that's always used in fiqh is like, I know that I made wudu, I'm not sure if I lost it. Okay, I go with what I know. I know that I lost my wudu, I can't remember if I made it. I go with what I know. And that's going to apply to everything. Here he's using this in the realm of spirituality. That's an ignorant thing for a person to do, is to leave that which they know about themselves, because it's extremely common. Oh, you're the best, you're the best, you're the smartest, you're the most incredible, you're the most intelligent person I've ever seen in my life. You're so important, you can change everything, you can do everything. You know, like all of these things, then they start to make the person deluded. Allah protect us from delusion. There's a really interesting, actually, story that the commentator puts in here. It's more like an incident than a story. He says, it's said about one of the wise people that the common folk praised him and he began to cry. So someone praised him and he began to cry. Crying, and the person praised you? So he said to him, I thought this was interesting because I think, one of the major ideas that seems to be sometimes plaguing, sometimes correct, the Muslim community is the idea of relevance. And the idea of, I want my religious leaders or my religious teachers to be relevant. And that's true insofar as you want them to understand the context, right? You want them to understand the context of what people are living in and the things that they go through and so on and so forth, so they can actually provide some perspective that deals with reality. That's fine. I want them to like dress in a particular way that makes them feel cool, or use language that is really this or that, or make pop culture references or whatever it might be. So I thought that this little incident was funny. He says, the person praised him, he started to cry, and his student said, he praised you and you're crying because of it? And he said, إنه لم يمدحني حتى وافق بعض خلقي خلقه فلذلك بكيت. He said he didn't praise me until some of my character aligned with his character. And so because of that, I cried. Mm. And this is a really on this relevant train for a while, um, and then I was talking to one brother who's been around for a long time in the dawah and in teaching and in the Muslim community and stuff. And he said, I don't understand these young people now that they want they want their teachers to like dress like them and talk like them and be like them and all this kind of stuff. And he said, when we used to go to Sheikh so and so, we never wanted him to be like us. That's why we went to him. Like he represented to us something that we were striving to become, not what we already were. Right. And I was like, whoa, that's interesting. Like it's not, I and of course that can be taken to some level of extreme and like elitism and stuff like that. But the point here is that I'm not looking, and even in pop culture, right? This is a theme. Someone that I'm kind of close with, he does a lot of work in media, and he made the observation that at some point the hero changed from being someone that you can look up to being someone that you can relate to. And he's like, just think about all the movies that are popular and how they used to be and how they are now. It became like now the hero is not like really someone you look up to, that you can like relate to them because they made this mistake or they had this major fall and they overcame that fall or whatever it might be. But it's not about like upholding some sort of standard. It's about none of us are perfect and like everyone's going to make mistakes and everyone's going to make huge mistakes, not just small ones. And so on and so forth. And that's a very different perspective. I mean, there's a reason why the Anbiya are ma'sumun. The Anbiya in our tradition, one of the core beliefs about the prophets is that they are protected from sin. Right? There's a reason for that. We don't believe in prophets who committed adultery and got drunk and slept with their daughters or liked women, so sent their husbands to the front lines and stuff like that. We don't believe in that. So this is just an interesting concept to reflect upon. You don't have to convince you or not convince you, just reflect upon it. So this question of relevancy, I think, is interesting. He's saying they only praised me because they saw something in me that made them feel okay. Right? Like it's not, they saw something about themselves that was in me. And those are not the things that I want to be in me. Like I don't, um, there's probably a lot to tease out there, but a lot of things, if we sit with them and we believe that there's some sort of wisdom in them instead of just rejecting them, but if we sit with them and we believe there's some sort of wisdom in them, we can usually come to an understanding of like what the limits are on it and what are the exceptions to it, and so on. Yeah, in a sense, when they praised him, they satisfied their own ego. Yeah, in a sense. Um, and that's something that's really uncomfortable about really good spiritual teachers, actually, is that they don't really make you feel comfortable. Like you don't feel threatened by them. There's not a fear that they're going to mistreat you, real true ones, or that they're going to take advantage of you or anything like that. But they're also not going to make you feel super comfortable. Like they're not going to alleviate your own internal issues for you. Actually their job is to force you to deal with your own internal issues. So sometimes like I've had interactions before with teachers where I kind of walk away and I'm like, "Hmm." Like like sometimes you're fishing for like a little bit of um like a little bit of affirmation, a little bit of taking it off yourself and putting it onto someone else. And sometimes they just give these responses where it's like, no, it's on you. And you have to figure that out. And I'm not going to sit here and play games with you. I'm not going to sit here and entertain you, because if that's what you're looking for, you can go somewhere else. I'm here to teach you, and if you have issues with that, then you need to deal with your own issues. And uh, it's rough sometimes, but they don't even say any of that. That's me projecting all of this. And maybe I'm completely projecting nonsense, but because they're not going to say those kind of things. But what I take from it is like, okay, yeah, I went into that and I wasn't dealing with my own stuff, and I really just needed to deal with my own stuff, and they're forcing me to do so, right? And I think that that's important, because we don't want to just build, we don't study all these things and do all these things and have these relationships and stuff so that we can just build carbon copy dependent people, right? Like what the goal is to build people who are really strong and really capable, and they can stand on their own 2 feet, and no matter where you put them, they're like an ummah to themselves, right? They're gonna know what to do, and they're gonna know how to engage, and they're gonna know how to, and in order to do that, they can't be told the answers to everything all the time. They need to figure out things on their own, and they need to make mistakes, and they need to be right sometimes and wrong sometimes in certain things, right? um, and that's one of the things that's really remarkable about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is that he really built men and women who carried the da'wah. They carried the message of Islam into places and circumstances that it's probably extremely difficult for us to even imagine. 145. إذا أطلق الثناء عليك ولست بأهل فأثني عليه بما هو أهل. When he lets praise of you burst forth and you are not worthy of it, praise him for what he is worthy of. So he's letting it happen. Just praise him. Praise him because he's worthy. You might not be worthy. I might not be worthy when people praise us, but he is worthy of praise, subhanahu. And he is worthy of praise, and he's so worthy of praise that we're unable to praise him in a way that is befitting of his praise, his being praised. And so we just say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, because that's what he gave us. He gave us Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. So this is the best way that I can praise him. That's what I have. SubhanAllah, this one, this one and the one next to it are related to an advice that someone I look up to gave me one time when I asked him about like how to deal with people praising you when you know that it's just not true. Like that they're not seeing the whole picture, but they keep praising you and stuff. So what do we do? He said, look, if the person, first of all, thank Allah. So this one is thank Allah, and the one after it is the other part of the answer. He said, thank Allah, and then if the person is like a good, sincere, not a good, but if the person's a sincere Muslim, just take it as a gift and as a glad tiding from Allah and move on with your life. You don't have to think about it too much. So first thing here is that you praise Allah. What comes to mind for me in this is the dua of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Subhanak, لا نحصي ثناء عليك أنت كما أثنيت على نفسك. لا نحصي ثناء عليك أنت كما أثنيت على نفسك. That the glorified are you, Allah. We are not capable of praising you. You are praised as you praised yourself. أنت كما أثنيت على نفسك. You are as you praised yourself. Like that's the best that we have, is to praise you the way that you praised yourself. Subhanak. لا نحصي ثناء عليك أنت كما أثنيت على نفسك. And then the next one is the one that I was referring to, 146. الزهاد إذا مدحوا انقبضوا لشهودهم الثناء من الخلق والعارفون إذا مدحوا انبسطوا لشهودهم ذلك من الملك الحق. So he says that the ascetics, when ascetics are praised, they are contracted. They feel that contraction or restriction, for they witness the praise as coming from human beings, and they don't feel like they're worth it, and so on and so forth. So then their response to that is to become restricted or contracted. When the Gnostics are praised, when the knowers of God are praised, they are expanded, for they witness the praise as coming from the true King. So one of them, they see it coming from the people, so they feel kind of contracted about that. And the other one, they see it as coming from Allah, so they feel a level of expansion from that. بل يقولون, those who witness God and nothing else, they say ألسنة الخلق أقلام الحق. They say the tongues of the people are the pens of al-haq. The tongues of the people are the pens of al-haq. That the tongue is only moving because of what was written by the pen, by the command of Allah. It's a beautiful little statement. And the Prophet ﷺ said, إِذَا مُرِحَ الْمُؤْمِنُ فِي وَجْهِهِ رَبَى الْإِيمَانُ فِي قَلْبِهِ. And it's a disputed hadith in terms of authenticity, but it's often quoted that the believer, when they are praised to their face, their iman grows in their heart. Because they believe it's coming from Allah, their iman grows in their heart. وَلِذَا كَانَ الْمُصَنِّفُ يَمْدَحُ الشَّيْخَ هُوَ الْمُرْسِي فَيَقَعُ عِنْدَهُ الْمَدْحُ مَوْقِعًا عَظِيمًا. Says, and because of this idea that the person's iman grows when they're praised by a believer, that the author used to praise his Shaykh Abul Abbas al-Mursi, and when he would do so, that would have a really powerful impact on the Shaykh, because the Shaykh would take it as like this really happy thing, you know. And now for the other side of this. وصاحب هذا المقام إذا ذمه أحد لا يجد في نفسه عليه ولا يؤذيه لعدم شهوده ذم صادرا منه. And at the same time, the other flip side of this is that the person who has this state, this position, this level, if someone blames them, then they don't hold that against the person because they don't see it as coming from the person. When they're praised, this is how you know if they're actually in this station or if they're in like a nafsani version of this station, an egotistical version of this station. The egotistical version of this station would be when someone praises them, they see it as coming from Allah. And when someone blames them, they blame it on the people. But the non-egotistical version of this is that if someone praises them, they see it as coming from Allah. And if someone blames them, they see it as coming from Allah. So all they're seeing is Allah. It has to go both ways. And or the narcissistic version is to do one without the other. 147. متى كنت إذا أعطيت بسطك العطاء وإذا منعت قبضك المنع فاستدل بذلك على ثبوت طفوليتك وعدم صدقك في عبوديتك. If when given something, the giving expands you, and if when deprived of something, the deprivation contracts you, then take that as proof of your immaturity and the insincerity of your servanthood. The insincerity of your servanthood and your immaturity. Because you're not like really there, you know. Again, the people who are there with Allah, if something comes to them, alhamdulillah. If it doesn't come to them, alhamdulillah. They're not committed to either of these possibilities. They're committed to Allah. So he's saying, take that as a sign of your immaturity. Now, there's a question here. And that question is this word, tufuliyatik. Tufuliyatik. Is that the way that they've translated this here indicates taking it as being related to the word tifl, which is a child. So basically take this as a sign that you're immature or you're a child. You're being childlike. And subhanAllah, there is kind of like even a cultural connotation to that, right? A cultural connotation to that is that like part of what it means to grow up is to not be so affected by the things that happen. You know, like sometimes it goes your way, sometimes it doesn't go your way, and you know you roll with the punches. You play the hand that's dealt, right? It's not like, oh, I'm not going to even play now because I didn't get the cards that I wanted, or it didn't go the way. So there's an element of that, but that's not actually the way that he goes about this in the commentary that I've been looking at. He doesn't actually relate it to the idea of being a tifl. He relates it to the idea of a tatafful. And a tatafful is something else in Arabic, and it relates to the idea of someone who's tufayli. So there's a whole thing here that has to be kind of unpacked. So he says, فَاسْتَدِلَّ بِذَلِكَ عَلَى تَطَفُّلِكَ على أهل الله وادعاء ما لهم من المقامات ولست منهم فتكون كالطفيلي الذي يدخل مع الأضياف في ضيافتهم ولا يستحق الدخول معهم. So he took a different route here. التطفل and the idea of a tufayli is an important character in Arabic literature. Okay, and in different genres of literature, you have different characters, right? Like people have generally, like Juha is a character in Arabic, Juha, and Mullah Nasruddin is a similar character in kind of like the Central Asian, South Asian lands. The idea of Mullah Nasruddin and kind of like this joker, trickster joker kind of person, but oftentimes who has a lot of wisdom. And a Tufaili is another character that presents himself a lot. A Tufaili is a person who basically shows up uninvited at a party and pretends like they're supposed to be there. So the Tufaili is like, okay, they know this gathering is going on. They show up and they're like, oh, feed me too. Let me get some food too. Let me take some things home. The Tufaili is like the uninvited guest. Okay. And that's a tatafful. And a tufuliya is related to that. So what he's saying in the commentary is, if this is your state, then know that you're a tufaili, because you claim that you're from the people of Allah, and you claim that you have this position and you have this state, but basically you brought yourself into a party that you don't belong in, and you considered yourself part of a group that you're not a part of that group. So you're a tufaili. You're not being sincere in your servanthood, because if you were being sincere in your servanthood, you wouldn't be dealing with the whole thing in that way. Okay, so the point here is to emphasize again the idea that give and take is not the point. Rolling with the waves and the winds of qadr is what the believer is supposed to do. And what's interesting is that sometimes, like, you might even be inclined to a particular direction, but the wind of qadr hasn't blown you in that direction yet. And so you wait, and a couple weeks could even pass, maybe a month passes, and the wind changes, and you're like, okay, now it's time for me to do this thing. Maybe, and we have that sometimes. Like sometimes we feel like, okay, it's time for me to move on from this thing that I'm in, or I feel like it's time, but I'm not really at the point. Nothing's really pushed me to actually make the move yet. So then I have to go through this feeling of like, the move or not the move is not the point. What the point is Allah, and to focus on Allah, and to be with Allah. And if Allah moves me, Allah moves me. And if Allah doesn't move me, He doesn't move me. And then oftentimes what happens is that the wind comes and it moves. The move is there. And at that point now the person has not moved themselves, but they've waited for Allah to indicate to them the move. And then there's great blessing in it. And they are given aid in it rather than having to handle it themselves, which I think came up in last week or the week before. So all of these things are going to, I was telling my wife, like every week when we do the hikam, I feel like, and I don't do it, may Allah forgive me, but I feel like really, it would be really, really useful to go through, not too deep of a commentary. I'm not trying to do too deep of a commentary. I'm trying to do a commentary that's just enough so that we can understand what's being said. And then you just read it like every week. Every week, I'm going to read through all 240 or 245 or however number it is. I think something like that. Every week, I'm going to go through it. I'm going to read it, so I can be reminded. I can be reminded. Because every week when we come back to them, it's like, subhanAllah, I needed to remember that. I need to pay attention to this. I need to focus on this, and so on. So 148. إذا وقع منك ذنب فلا يكن سببا ليأسك من حصول الاستقامة مع ربك فقد يكون ذلك آخر ذنب قدر عليك. When a sin is committed by you, do not let it make you despair of attaining uprightness with your Lord. For that one may be the last ever destined for you to commit. For that one may the last ever, it's missing a B, right? For that one may be the last ever destined for you to commit. That might be the last one. So I'm trying and I'm working and I'm trying to rectify my relationship with Allah and I'm doing the best that I can and I fall into this sin. It says, don't let it be a cause of despair for you because that might actually be the last one. That might be the last one that He's destined upon you. But you have to keep working, keep reviewing and keep going back to it. And he says something important in the commentary. He said, لأن الاستقامة لا يناقضها فعل الذنب فعل الذنب فلتة إذا جرى القدر بذلك وإنما يناقضها الإصرار عليه والعزم على فعله ثانيا فالواجب عليك حينئذ أن تبادر بالتوبة منه فإنه قد يكون آخر ذنب قدر عليك فتستديم بعده الاستقامة. So he says, don't worry that this means that you cannot be upright with Allah. Don't worry that this means that you cannot be upright with Allah, because a mistake that happens all of a sudden is not contradictory to being upright with Allah. What's contradictory to being upright with Allah is to be persistent in that mistake and intend to continue doing it over and over again. And what's required of the person in that situation is that they flee to Allah and ask His forgiveness, and maybe that will be the last sin that they're destined to commit. Some good comments here. Shaitan tries hard to make us despair. Yes, he sure does. Your best teacher is your last mistake. Also very good. Someone said, this sounds like conditional love for God. Can you explain? I'm not sure. Try to say more. If you want to come on the audio, you can. If you want to put it in there. It was for the previous one. Okay. Like the person, do you mean the person who they're happy when they get what they want, but they're not when they don't get what they want? That sounds like conditional. Okay. That sounds like, yeah, it is, right? It's like, oh Allah, I'm gonna be your servant. That's why He says, you didn't have sidq in your ubudiyah. There's not that's not sincerity in your servanthood, because that's like, I'm gonna be your servant, Allah, as long as you do what I want you to do for me. And it's really problematic. May Allah protect us. Even though we recognize it's problematic, sometimes we act that way. And getting it into our hearts and like really, allowing it to be in there is oftentimes harder than just saying it. 149. إذا أردت أن يفتح لك باب الرجاء فاشهد ما منه إليك وإذا أردت أن يفتح لك باب الخوف فاشهد ما منك إليه. So what's interesting about this, he says, when you want Him to open you the door of hope, behold what is from Him to you. And if you want Him to open you the door of fear, behold what is from you to Him. So this one I think is really interesting because it's reminding us that part of our journey to Allah is that we must be very vigilant with ourselves, and we must pay attention to ourselves, and we must watch ourselves. And if we watch ourselves, we'll realize that sometimes I need to give myself a little bit of hope, and sometimes I need to give myself a little bit of fear. And it's almost like a medicine, right? Like I'm noticing that I'm getting too lazy, I'm getting too hopeful. So I need to give myself a dose of a little bit of fear. And sometimes I'm becoming too fearful, and I need to give myself a little bit of a dose of hope. And I'm going to medicate myself. I'm going to treat myself in this journey to Allah by using those things. So what He's giving us in this hikmah then is, if I'm paying attention and I'm trying to medicate myself in this way and deal with these things, then how is it, okay, I recognize that I'm actually going a little bit overboard in the fear thing, and I need to give myself a little bit of hope. How do I do that? I do it by looking at what He has given to me, what Allah has given to me. And if I'm on the other side and I realize that I'm becoming too hopeful and it's causing me to be complacent and lazy and so on and so forth, then what I need to do is look at what I am putting forth for Him, what I'm putting forth for Him. And then that will give me like a little bit of, all right, I need to do more. I need to put in more work. I need to do more, 149, 150. Making better time today, but we're still not making great time. 150. ربما أفادك في ليل القبض ما لم تستفده في إشراق نهار البسط لا تدرون أيهم أقرب لكم نفعا لا تدرون أيهم أقرب لكم نفعا. Very nice. He says, He often benefits you in the night of distress, which you have not benefited in the dawning of the daytime of elation. You know not which of them is nearer in benefit to you. So sometimes we have these, again, times of elation and expansion. Sometimes we have times of distress and despair, not despair, distress and contraction and restriction. And oftentimes He's giving us in the night of that restriction more than we're getting in the day of the elation. And this is why, again, we don't worship Allah so that we get whatever we want. We worship Him because He's God. And this is also why some of the spiritual teachers, at least one that I know, anytime that someone speaks to him about how bad their iman is, which is not usually an issue of how bad their iman is, it's about how they're feeling. He tells them, you are not the judge of your iman. You worship your Lord. You are not the judge of it. And part of what that's saying is that, like, these are not the things by which we judge our relationship with God, the contraction and the expansion. The contraction and the expansion is part of it. It's not going anywhere. It's part of it. You're going to have it. And how do we deal with it? And how do we keep going? And how do we have istiqamah in the face of both of those things? Because sometimes actually, and I think we already covered that one. And there's another one coming that's very similar to it. It's not in the next couple, but is that sometimes actually the person who's in a state of expansion is in more trouble than the person who's in the state of constriction. Because the one in the expansion, they think like everything's so great and they think they're so great and they want to talk about everything and they're like the insights they have and the spiritual experiences they had and so on and so forth. And because they keep talking about it, it gets cut off. Because now it became a show and it's not supposed to be a show. It's supposed to be you and Allah. There's a really interesting biography in the beginning of a book called Sea Without Shore. And this is not to call people to any particular spiritual path or a teacher or anything like that. It's to mention the biography. So the book is by Shaykh Nuh Keller, and he's a Shadili. And so what he did in the book is the second half of the book, he talks about like the path or whatever. But the first half, he tells biographies of people that he's met on his journey. And one of them in particular, I don't remember which one it was really interesting, but it really focused on how this person that he's talking about was really adamant that whatever's between him and Allah stays between him and Allah. He's not going to talk about it. He's not going to make any show of it. He's not going to give any hint of it. It's purely between him and Allah, and he's going to look and talk and speak and be as normal as possible. And what's happening in his heart is what's happening in his heart. What's happening in his relationship with Allah is what's happening in his relationship with Allah. It's not a game. It's not a show. Right? 151. مطالع الأنوار القلوب والأسرار. مطالع الأنوار القلوب والأسرار. And this idea has come before. We can move quickly. The horizons whence illuminations ascend are hearts and souls. So what is this saying? This is saying that the anwar, the illuminations that ascend The place of the illuminations is the hearts and the souls. They're like the hearts of the knowers of God, and their inner souls are like this are like the skies that the stars shine in. Right? In general, the person's soul is like the sky that the light shines in. The stars shine in the sky, the lights of Allah shine in the heart. So if the heart is polluted, it's like we're in the cities usually, right? There's all this light pollution, there's all this smog, all these other things. So then when you look in the sky, you can't see the stars, even though they're there. The lights are still there. In the heart of the believer, the light is still there. But when the heart is polluted, it can't shine forth. We don't recognize it shining forth. There's a beautiful statement of Ibn Hassan al-Shadhili radiallahu ta'ala anhu, where he said, لو كشف عن نور المؤمن العاصي لطبق ما بين السماء والأرض فما ظنك بنور المؤمن المطيع. He said, if the light of the disbelieving believer, or the disobedient believer, if the light of the disobedient believer was to be unveiled, it would fill everything in the heavens and the earth. So what do you think about the believing, obedient believer? The light of the disobedient believer, if it was unveiled, it would fill everything that's in the heavens and the earth. So what do you think about the believer who's obedient and follows what the Lord wants them to follow? I want to try to get through a couple more, that way we can have a good stopping point. Nurun 152. نور مستودع في القلوب مدده من النور الوارد من خزائن الغيوب. So now he's talking about these different nur, different light. This is a light. A light is reposited in hearts that is maintained by the light coming from the treasures of the unseen. So the light that's in the heart, the light that's in the sky, we get it from the sun, right? That's what, and the sun gets its light from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ultimately. But the light that's in the heart, its source and its maintenance comes from the light of the treasuries of the unseen. ونور, in the next one, نور يكشف لك به عن آثاره ونور يكشف لك به عن أوصافه. So now he's explaining it more. So one of these lights, like the light of the sun, the light of the moon, these are lights by which, there is a light by which he shows you his effects. His effects meaning those things that are in creation as an effect of his attributes. Right? So whatever it might be. Like they say that a tree is a reflection of Allah's attribute of, or his name of Ar-Razaq, that Allah is the provider, and a tree is a reflection of that name. So there's a light that allows us to see that tree, which is a reflection of his name, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there's a light by which he shows you his attributes. That's the light of the heart. So there's a light by which we see the tree, and there's a light by which we see Ar-Razaq. And those are two very different lights, what he's getting at here. The nur, the light that's in the heart is the most important one to pay attention to. And that's why, again, sometimes you see people who are blind, especially in Muslim history, there's so many people who are blind, who are great scholars, great saints, because they were blind, but they could see. And they could see things that other people couldn't see. The light that was in their heart was seeing in a way that others don't. ربما وقفت القلوب مع الأنوار كما حجبت النفوس بكثائف الأغيار. Hearts sometimes halt with lights, just as selves are veiled by the opacity of things beside him. So sometimes the heart doesn't make it past that light, that initial light. Doesn't get deeper. Just like sometimes the soul is the soul is veiled by the material things. Sometimes it doesn't go, and it needs to go a little bit deeper, but it's not always that things go a little bit deeper. We're going to stop here, but I'll read the next one just to say that we're going to read the next one, inshallah. We're going to continue from 155 next time. It's tied to this, and it's tied to something that I was making an indication to before. ستر أنوار السرائر بكثائف الظواهر إجلالا لها أن تبتذل بوجود الأظهار وأن ينادى عليها بلسان الاشتهار. He says he has veiled the lights of inward souls with the coarseness of outward appearances out of reverence for them, lest they be made low and common by being divulged or be called on aloud by the tongue of fame. So we'll come to this one next time, inshallah. وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم الحمد لله رب العالمين. If there's any comments or reflections or anything people want to share, أهلا وسهلا. Unmute, sorry. Here, let me give you unmute capacities. Go ahead now.
Okay. So my question was that when you were talking about how, like, you know, with the youth, that now that they want somebody who like has the same beliefs as they do and looks like them and so on. When you were saying that, like, if somebody, you know, the way someone responds to someone's belief is an insecurity that they have to deal with, and it's something that they have to reflect on, like, with, you know, I guess this, with certain beliefs, like now we kind of can hear what beliefs are more harmful, so it's like, I guess, how can you tell a difference between whether you're reacting adversely because it's tapping into an insecurity, or if you genuinely believe that their beliefs are harmful and that's why you're acting adversely?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The simple answer to that would be knowledge, right? So, and this is one of the things I think that people, um, like, if we don't only learn because we want to learn and know more and stuff like that, but we also learn because it helps us to engage with other people. So if someone's like presenting something to me and that makes me feel uncomfortable, and it makes me feel uncomfortable because I think it's wrong, that's one thing, right? But it's different if like let me give an example of what I was trying, or let me try to give an example of what I was trying to get at in that whole thing, was that sometimes you might, this happens a lot in counseling settings too, is that oftentimes when people come for counseling or they come for advice, really what they're coming to do is they're coming to get you to answer the question for them so that they don't have to do it themselves, and then they can blame you afterwards for whatever happens. It's very, very, they don't always realize that's what they're doing, but it's very common. So sometimes you sit with someone, you have a conversation with them, you talk to them, you hear what's going on with them, listen to them, and then you ask them in the end, like, so what do you think you should do? And they're like, no, I'm asking you what I should do. So, well, I can't tell you what to do, right? Like, we can talk about it. Why do you think you should do this, or why do you think you should do that? What do you think your options are? And that might be uncomfortable for the person, but that's not uncomfortable for them because what they're being told is wrong per se. It's uncomfortable for them because they're trying to elude responsibility and they're not being allowed to elude responsibility. They're not being given that card, right? That's what I was referring to. But if someone's like saying something that you just think is wrong, you think it doesn't sound right, you think it there might be more to it, so on and so forth, then by all means ask questions, right? In those kind of cases, we should ask questions either of that person or of other people, you know. Um, and we should trust people before we listen to them on various things, you know. So
I'm sure
there's
you get that counseling situation with issues regarding marriage and stuff, right?
all the time.
About who to marry and
Hmm.
why.
Hmm. Who to marry? Why? Should I marry this person or not? That's definitely not a question I'm going to answer for you. I might, in certain cases, I might say things like, there are some really big red flags here that you should watch out for. And even still, I'm not going to make the choice for you. But if I was you, I wouldn't overlook these things, you know. But yeah, these things come up. These things come up. Does that help on what you were?
Oh yeah, no, that helps a lot. I think I guess especially with just how much more access we have to that kind of knowledge online, especially. And I hate to put it this simply, with woke culture specifically. Like I just wonder how much of that adverse reaction comes from sincerely believing that the person's beliefs are harmful, versus they're tapping into an insecurity. So that's where I was kind of approaching it. But yes, the question that you
Yeah.
answered my question.
Yeah. They're like huge minefields. We're we're walking around in huge minefields. Allah help us. Inshallah. Auntie, you should be able to unmute yourself. You're saying, can I be unmuted next? You should be able to do that and ask whatever you'd like or contribute whatever you like. Inshallah. Give it a shot.
Oh, this is just Harun. I just
Oh,
wanted
it's
to
uncle.
say Assalamu alaikum.
It's uncle. Okay. Wa alaikum salam. How are you?
Alhamdulillah. I just wanted to give my salams and
It's
quietly just dissolve back into the background.
very nice to hear you. MashaAllah. I hope you're doing well.
You as well. Assalamu alaikum.
MashaAllah. Wa alaikum salam. All right. I'm sorry to drink this thing in front of you. I should have better manners. It probably looks so good. Astaghfirullah. I'm so sorry. What a horrible person I am. Couldn't wait 5 minutes until the thing was over to drink it. Maybe you have better than what was put in front of you with such adab. Khair. Alhamdulillah. Inshallah, we will conclude. Barakallahu fikum. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. نستغفرك ونتوب إليك